Thanks very much, Francis. Yes, well, we've seen the local bourse in negative territory pretty much most of the morning and into this afternoon. As I mentioned at the top of the hour, the resources stocks are being heavily discounted at the moment. There's a major sell-off happening there. It's all to do, I suppose, with the stronger dollar. Stronger dollar means that commodity products which are denominated in US dollars become more expensive for other currency holders to purchase, and therefore demand for them slides. But we'll get to the bottom of whether the fundamentals have really changed at all. Oil prices have taken a dip as well, this on the back of the stronger dollar, and also the fact that there remains quite a bit of supply of crude oil in the market relative to demand, although there is an expectation that OPEC and non-OPEC oil producers will decide to do some sort of freezing of output, or at least somehow find a mechanism that will ensure that they're able to keep the oil price in check. And in the meantime, global markets are awaiting a slew of manufacturing data that will be coming out tomorrow, that we call that PMI, and also on Friday, we're expecting the US non-farm payrolls to come out. Those are the jobs numbers out of the US, which will give some impetus to the Fed's decision on whether to increase interest rates in September or later down the line. Let's take a look at the indicators. I'm joined by Makwe Masilela. He's from BP Bernstein. Thank you very much for joining us. It's been a long time. The resources counters, they are really being battered. We see Impala Platinum down nearly 6%, Lonmin the same, and so on and so forth. Is this all a dollar story or something to do with the fundamentals?
You know, more of a dollar story, because as we know, I mean, for the past 2-3 weeks, I mean, fundamentals have not changed that much, you know. So it's more of a dollar story, or the fact that since last week Friday, you know, indications by the Fed president that they might look into hiking, you know. Tuesday as well, the vice thereof also stated more or less the same thing, you know. So it's more of the strengthening of the dollar. And unfortunately, as you said earlier, I mean, the minute the dollar strengthens, because these things are priced in dollars, then it becomes more expensive for people using other currencies.
Yesterday or the day before, it seemed as though the market was discounting the possibility of a US Fed hike for September. But when we look at the sort of extent of the sell-off, do you think the market is beginning to think that September is a possibility?
You know, it is back on the cards, though chances are, I mean, they might move, say, December. But yes, it's back on the cards. And I think it's mainly based on the comments that were made by the deputy of the Federal Reserve on Tuesday, you know. And also the data that came out yesterday, the housing numbers, the confidence numbers, you know, out of the US, that strengthened the case. And today, we've got what you can call the home-up numbers, you know, what we call the ADT, jobs report on the private sector, you know, that number is coming out around 2:30. So we'll be watching that as a home-up to the job numbers on Friday. So stuff like that is kind of strengthening the case, or bringing back the case that September might, you know, but yes, the more chances still show that they might have to hike come December instead of September.
All right. And then the local market generally has been in the negative. I suppose that's still really just the same theme driving the market at the moment.
More or less, but also, I mean, we've got our own doings as well, you know. Sentiment is not looking that well, you know. I mean, if you have issues that we all know about, the Hawks, the Minister of Finance, the state-owned enterprises, stuff like that, yes, that's bad for sentiment going forward. And remember, we always get involved in markets, you know, as like forward-looking. So the question is what's going to happen going forward, you know. So, but with all this negative sentiment, unfortunately, it's not doing us any good.
And the Rand, well, oh my goodness, it's now suddenly shot up. It's now at 14.52 against the US dollar. It was below that before. Do you think we're going to see it flirting with 15 to the dollar?
It's possible, and we've just seen the comments coming out, you know, from the the guy from the CEO of ESCOM, the comments that they made from Parliament today, you know, the comments made by the ruling party, Secretary General, stuff like that, you know, the ministers, you know. So that's very, very negative for the rand. And I think people need to understand that it's not of a question, the market are not saying who's right or wrong. The market are more questioning how are you handling the issues, you know. We're not the only country with issues, but the question is how do you go about handling them?
Indeed. Now, private credit extension, some data that was released by the Reserve Bank this morning, it showed a slowing in borrowing. What does it generally say about the economy in general? Because we know that that trend has been going on for quite some months now.
It's not a good thing, you know, and honestly speaking, for the economy to grow, we need to spend. And given our situation here back home, and I think in most countries, I mean, from whatever you earn every month, it's not enough for you to spend on durable goods. You still need access to credit. So if you see that going down, I mean, that doesn't bode well going forward, you know. So for the fact that, you know, banks or whoever, they're no longer lending out, you know, at higher rates, you know, that says something about our economy. And we understand that they are more stricter, and we know that consumers themselves, so the fact that the banks are strict, they themselves, they cannot afford. Affordability is not there. I mean, the last time we checked, out of every rent you earn, almost 74 cents thereof was going towards repaying your debt. So it's not easy for people to create credit. Yes, it doesn't bode well going forward for the economy.
Let's take a look at a stock, Steinhoff. It's been in the media quite a lot because it's been on a massive sort of acquisition trail. It came out with its financial results for the year ended June, reporting revenue up 33%, operating profit up 32%. Look, these numbers look very good,
Sure.
but when you look at it and what it's trying to do is trying to forge into the UK markets and the US, what do you think of it and what do you think of their results?
I think it makes sense for them to do that. I mean, back home, we just said it now. I mean, the consumer here, I mean, doesn't have much of a flexibility. Consumers here don't have the money or the luxury to be able to spend. But now in Europe, at least they still have a leeway, and the numbers as well confirms that. You see revenue that they earn back home here is down almost 18% compared to revenue earned overseas, which is up almost 15%. And the way they're trying to get involved to offer like low-cost bedding overseas, it's a good move. And the guys are getting involved at almost low prices when more or less the markets are depressed, which for me, I think it's a good move. You get involved when you can pick up things very cheap, and when things start picking up, we are already there. So I think going forward, yeah, it's worth to be on your radar screen.
Okay, a thumbs up for Steinhoff then. And then lastly, more broadly, we hear that Nigeria is now officially in recession. What does that mean? Because there's been a debate about who's bigger, South Africa or
Sure.
Nigeria. Which is the bigger economy?
You know, I think more or less we know the last numbers we saw were not calculated the right way, but chances are we're just overtaking them, but a very low margin. Why we're seeing that? I mean, Nigeria, most of their earnings are from oil. And if you see their oil earnings to GDP, that's down by almost 6% compared to the first quarter, which was down almost 0.38. I mean, that's a very huge impact. And seeing what's happening with the oil prices, we don't expect any improvement from that end. So unfortunately, and with us, the rand, if it can continue maybe to strengthen, that might be able to help us. But as we are talking, chances are we are on par or we are just above them by a very small margin.
Okay, all right, we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much for your time.
Pleasure.
That was Makwe Masilela. He's from BP Bernstein.